Hi, it's Dave Oates from FinderMonkey and Joanna North Associates. Wanting to answer a question on this week's video that we get asked an awful lot, and I'm going to try and keep it really simple, but it is sometimes a bit complicated. I'll give you the question. So the question we get asked is, what is the law around a birth mother contacting an adopted adult? So what I'm going to talk about in trying to answer that question is specifically thinking about England and Wales, because that's where the majority of our work lies, and the law is different in Scotland and Northern Ireland on adoption, so it's like things slightly differ. Regulations that came into force on the 30th of December 2005 state that a birth relative of an adopted adult, so that would include a birth mum, but include father, siblings, etc., and some wider family, I suppose, as well, can apply for an intermediary service to find and contact an adopted adult. Now, in applying for an intermediary service, you don't get given the information about the adopted adult. So for the most part, birth family will not know the identity of an adopted person. And an intermediary agency or adoption agency that can provide such a service isn't allowed to share that information with you, but they are permitted to access that information so that they can firstly check if it's okay to try and find and contact that person, but also then to get the information that they need to go away and trace that person to a current whereabouts and hopefully contact them and get their consent. So this is the key thing when we're looking for somebody's, their identity is protected in adoption law and it can't be released unless you have their consent. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but that really relates to if an adopted person has passed away, and obviously that's something that we do come across occasionally. But even then it's quite complicated because you've got to think about the wider implications for sharing information on adoptive family members. So I hope that answers the question. So if you are a birth relative, including a birth mum, of a person who's been adopted, who is over the age of 18 now, and was adopted before the 30th of December 2005, then you are permitted to request an intermediary service. An intermediary provider, there are only a handful really in England and Wales, so you need to find somebody who is a registered intermediary provider and adoption support agency. Joanna North Associates being obviously a good example of that. There are this service historically was provided by some local authorities. There are perhaps just a handful left that will still provide that service locally to their people who live in their area, but actually very few do. So you'd need to check with your own local authority if that's something you can do. The other thing it's worth thinking about if you're in that situation and looking for an adult adopted person who's been adopted away from your family is the Adoption Contact Register. It's a really good place to start, a very simple process to register your details on there. And if the person that you're looking for is on there with a wish to have contact, then in theory that can be facilitated really quite easily. What I would say though is I'm not aware of too many people who've had a lot of success with the Adoption Contact Register. It's quite confusing to a lot of people, mostly because there have been other registers, and so somebody might be on one register, you might be on another, and unless you've kind of covered every single possibility, it's hard to know if somebody not being on that register is an indication as to whether they want contact or not. In my experiences, it doesn't inform us that somebody doesn't want contact if they're not on the contact register, nor does it tell us that they do want contact. But the only way to find out, in our experience, is to go through that process and find them and ask them the question. I hope this has been useful. If anyone's got any questions around it, I'm more than happy to answer them, so you can send those in. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back next week with another video. Thanks for watching.